Hello everyone, welcome back. It's MotorFiles episode 8. Today is going to be an El Camino episode. That's why I'm wearing my El Camino shirt. We're working on wiring in something I've wanted to have in the car for a really long time. So stay tuned, it's going to be a fun one. I'll get everything set up on the bench and then I'll show you what we're doing. I have my El Camino Bible right here. If you don't have some kind of Chilton's or Haynes manual for your project car, what are you doing? Like, this helps so much, even though it's kind of a general manual. It's not super specific to my exact El Camino, even because it's a 64 to 84. It's a nice reference, and it gives me a quick way to look up torque specs and all that other stuff. If I scroll into, here's a page I bookmarked. This is the chassis electrical page. If you got to research where different modules and things live, like here's how the AC defroster systems all linked together under the dash. It gives you some great diagrams on how to run different things and figure out the best way to go about tackling certain projects you're doing. So I'd highly recommend. I use this manual a lot when I'm going through and addressing certain systems. Like, it goes over carburation, gives you tons of great specs. So if you don't have one for your project car, your project bike, you can probably find one on eBay if it's an older vehicle for relatively inexpensive. So that should be good and super fun. Looks like I'm losing a page. So I'm going to reveal what we're going to be working on this episode. It's under this. This is a Bulldog Security remote starter system. Pretty much any pre-CAN bus car, anywhere from the 60s, 50s, 60s, all the way up to, I think they started really rolling out in the early 90s. Bulldog is no longer in business anymore. However, compared to some of the newer modern stuff, a lot of reviews I've seen online that these are the most reliable systems. They're relatively inexpensive to get, really easy to wire, and they're readily available and they're easy to modify and kind of figure out. And they're about as simple as they can get. Anyway, I already opened it up. So what this kit comes with is, here's your Bulldog remote. You can get extra remotes online as well. So this one just has start, lock, unlock, trunk, and stop. Obviously, being an El Camino, it doesn't have a trunk. So that'll be something in the future that we can wire in and kind of have some fun with. What I'm really excited about is it'll have lock and unlock and then remote start. You obviously couldn't use this on a small block 350 with a carburetor because you need to pump the carburetor. It wouldn't start. Maybe it could with an electric fuel pump, but yeah, it wouldn't start right. It's not really made for it. This is really good for a fuel injected car. Now that we're in an LS, this is awesome. And it'll be kind of fun. All the modern cars have it, so why not? I already cracked it open. Here's what the remote starter comes with. You've got your 4 relay connector, your main power connector, your harness, and then your computer harness with your antenna. This is a hood pin switch. So if they try to open the hood after they unlock it, it'll shut down the car. So we're definitely going to integrate this. This will be a nice safety feature. Comes with warning stickers. We're not going to let people know. This is basic install kit. Looks like a little knife, some zip ties, and electrical tape. May or may not use the zip ties. I like using black zip ties just to keep everything consistent. Here's our install guide with all the wiring, different relays and everything like that, how to connect the harness. And then some of you youngins might not know what this is, but this is a VHS tape on how to install it. I think I have a VHS player. I could hook it up. Maybe we'll watch that over for fun at the end of the episode. We'll see if I did it right. And then, yeah, so I'm going to get everything laid out. And then I'm going to talk about how I figured out on my notes here, how I figured out which wires to connect to which. And then what we're going to do is we're going to tidy up this harness. So that way when we get under the car later in the episode, it'll be super easy to plug and play each wire to each part of the harness. And I'm going to go and label everything that isn't used and that needs to be plugged in. So that way, when I go and add other accessories to this harness, when I add other things later on, or if I need to troubleshoot something, it'll be really easy to figure out because everything will be labeled. So I'm going to get everything laid out, and then we will talk about how I kind of figured out which wires go where, and we'll get it all set up to get under the car and install it. I've got everything laid out. Obviously it looks like it's a little scary, but it's really not, and I'll show you why. So first up, I'm going to show you, here's our main 4 relay power distribution, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to show you how these hook up, and I'm going to show you some of the smaller wires, how those hook up, and then they will both plug into the security box. The main wires here, and then this big, I think this is like an 18 plug harness, plugs in there. So that'll mount under the dash, and then we'll tidy all this up. So what I've done is, here's the installation manual here. You can also find this online. What I did was I read through the wiring diagram in my book, and then I went through the installation manual, put this list together of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, maybe 11 or 12 different wires that we're going to have to connect. The rest of them we can add on later, but that's the main wires that need to be connected in order for this system to work. So what I did was went through this manual, kind of put it in the way I think it should be connected. Then I used an AI software, told it which car I had, the model of this Bulldog security system, and I actually went through and made a few adjustments on the way I had it lined up, and then gave me a hit-by-hit list to go and mark it off of what needs to be hooked up. Wiring used to be a little bit more daunting for me back in the day, but now I can double check my work. I wish I had these tools available a long time ago, but you know, that is progress. So now I've got my really easy list, and I don't like laying under the car for longer than I have to. Getting under that dash is a little tight in that El Camino. The more work I can do to prep for the install, the better off I'll be installing the product. So I'm going to take my notes. I'm going to go through the 4-pin relay and the sub harness, mark all the wires that I need to connect and the ones I don't need to connect that I want to add later with blue tape. That'll get everything tidied up, and then we will get this ready to go under the car. Sorry for the world's longest time lapse, but you get that on these jobs. I have the harness all bundled up with some split loom, mostly taped up. I obviously will do some final mounting and zip tying and whatnot once this is put in the car. But let me show you, how I have this set up. It works pretty much on any vehicle. So if you're doing this at home on your car, you can mount it the same way. You just might have different colors in your ignition harness. It's going to be a yellow wire here. That's the antenna. I'm going to snake this up after I mount it to, up in the dash or somewhere where it will receive better signal. So we've got our 4 relays here. That comes down to this harness. Everything's labeled. So I'll have 2 ignition wires that go to a main 12-volt power. That's going to connect in with this wire right here. Those are going to connect to a main 12-volt power. two 30 amp fuses on this one 15 amp fuse on this one. So those are all bundled up. Then on the 4 amp fuse, I've got the ignition crank, or the accessory, and then the ignition crank wire. So those will get put into the ignition harness. On the security system module, like I said, I've got the power that goes in the ignition harness, and then this goes to the accessory power right here. So those will bundle up on that. Then I have these two wires here. This will go to the brake switch, this blue wire. This will go to a ground, a chassis ground, and then I'm going to run a intermediate switch in between the grounds. That way, if I wanted to, if I was working on the car, I could disarm the system. Because the way the system's set up, I don't believe it'll have as much of a parasitic drag as a more modern system with CAN bus and different things like that. So, yeah, that's the goal anyway, and that's why I went with kind of an older system. So that's those two wires. This will go to the hood pin switch, and I'll run this on the hood, so it'll disconnect the ground when the hood's closed, and then I'll open it up and trigger the alarm here. I have this, which is the parking light. This will go into the headlight switch, and when I arm the system, disarm the system, remote start, this will flash the parking lights. And then I have these two wires for the door lock and unlock. And then I have this larger loom here on the Bulldog system. There's two inner looms that I electrical tape. One is all the wires that are not going to be used for this setup, and then the other one are accessories for like the trunk release. If I wanted to do an aftermarket alarm, like a louder alarm or anything like that, it's really easy for me. I can just cut this electrical tape right here, pull the looms out. It might be hard to see, but inside here, every wire is labeled like this. So that way, when I go back, if I want to add things or adjust things, it'll be really easy for me to find out. I won't need my notes, and I won't need this diagram, even though I will keep these, obviously. Pre-installation, if you can set yourself up for success and do all the heavy lifting before, it makes it that much easier. And then, you know, digesting where the wires go, how to route them, and then create yourself a game plan will make your installation much smoother. And honestly, I've spent a lot of time under the dash of this car doing various things, and it's not a super great position to be in. So to make this as easy as possible on the bench before I go into the car will just make it that much more enjoyable and that much easier to wire. I hope that explanation kind of helped you see my thought process behind getting this set up and turning a module with a lot of wires into some really easy digestible steps so you could do something like this at home. So now we're going to go over to the other shop. We're going to get the panels pulled out of the way, and I'll show you how we're going to wire this in.
A few moments later.
It is the next day. I couldn't really get some good footage of installing the Bulldog security system under the car just because I ended up completing it kind of later in the afternoon, and I didn't have much light, so it was really hard to get my camera under the dash and show you how it went together. But I basically just followed my instructions, wired right in, worked great, no problems. But let me show you something cool. So there's the El Camino right there. I'm gonna hit the unlock button. You can see the lights flash, lock, unlock, and I'm gonna hit the start button. And then if we want to kill it, turns right off. My favorite part is the lock unlock feature. Makes it really easy to get in and out. Another nice thing about this is the kill switch is wired in on the negative ground, so I can turn off the system if I don't want to use it or if I park it for a long time. I usually leave it parked overnight on the battery tender, so I don't know if there's much of a draw, so I'll test that out. But yeah, everything's working great. Unlock. Fuel pump kicks on. And it starts right up. The only other thing I want to add to this is there is a trunk switch or trunk button on the key fob. So I'm gonna figure out some kind of cool party trick I can wire into that. Everything else was really easy to install. You know, I definitely recommend this for a classic car that you daily drive or drive occasionally. The only thing that I have noticed, because the car has a big old cam in it, on cold start on the remote starter, it takes 2 or 3 tries to get it to fire up. I'll double check my grounds to make sure it isn't a grounding issue, but I don't believe it is. I think it's just, even when I had the normal key in the ignition to start it, on cold start, it just took a little bit to kind of, you know, get the fuel in the cylinders. So thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for the next episode. I'm doing more fun stuff on this car. I've got the Tempter, and then I've got another bike project we're going to announce soon. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.